The issue in these midterms is, of course, inflation. It's actually also crime. I mean, economy is your top, but crime is a big one. The issue in this election is about the desire, the need, the want of so many Americans to return to normalcy. And Americans will always vote, shouldn't say always, usually vote in their best interests. And what they want is normalcy. Republicans have an incredible opportunity in this midterm, not only to get huge levels of victories as the momentum is clearly in their direction, they have the opportunity to capitalize on the concept of normalcy. Because, all right, maybe 81 million people didn't vote for Joe Biden. That's not my argument. But they didn't vote for Biden. They voted for normalcy, and they figured a vote against Trump was a vote to get things back to normal. It was just too damn crazy. And what they got was way too much freaking crazy. They didn't vote for this. You got to keep that in mind. Welcome, everybody, to the show presented by Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org. I am loaded up. I am loaded for freaking bear, and it's nowhere near enough. I only got so much time. About the level of disconnect the Democratic Party has with the American voter, and that's what's driving so much of this. It's important. It's imperative that Republicans understand this. It's not that people are all of a sudden in love with the Republicans. That's not it. It's that the left is so disconnected from where the American voter is. The left is so disconnected from what actually moves the American voter. They still believe that abortion is the top subject. The overturning of Roe v. Wade was very important because I believe it was a usurpation of states' rights. People on the right didn't understand that, well, once that happens from the Supreme Court, you're going to have to make decisions. And the left thought they could use that as a way of a rallying cry because look at how extreme they are. When Senator Lindsey Graham pushed forth this idea that we should have ourselves a 15-week moratorium on abortion, and people said, that's so extreme. It's not actually extreme if you want to take a look the world over. 12 weeks is where a lot of nations are. 15 weeks is a big improvement in terms of the amount of time you would have to have an abortion. I don't favor it happening on the federal level. I want the states to make this call. I want them to debate it out, and maybe they'll change their mind in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, because that culturally is the only way you get things done. Remember, abortion being outlawed is never going to be the thing coast to coast. Culturally, you have to make abortion something that is most remarkably limited. Abortion is not the top subject, though. It has never ranked more than 5 to 8% in a multiplicity of polls. Inflation, however, is. Crime, however, is. The supply chain is. Your future, your dollars, your kids, that's the subject and the story. Oh, and people don't want to be called racist every damn day. So you've got a Democratic Party that wants to talk about abortion every single chance they get and think that's the lead story. They want to tell you that we live in a racist, bigoted nation every single day. They don't want parents having a say in their kids' education, and they are very, very vocal about it. Then you've got the progressive left taking full-throated support of the idea of children engaged in transgender surgery. Now, I just picked some topics, not all of the topics, but those topics don't comport with where Americans are at. That's not what they voted for, if indeed they voted for Joe Biden. They wanted to bring down the nuts, and instead, it's through the roof. Never mind gas prices, never mind the cost of all things. Let me break down some of this for you. Let me go through some of the video that I have for you, starting with this conversation about crime and how the left is convinced that the Democratic Party is doing great on crime.
Yeah. Okay. And the Republicans now coming up to the next election, which is next week, by the way, all they do is talk about crime. Well, I looked it up. Murders in major cities have fallen by 4% so far in 2022 compared with the same period a year ago. So crime is not on the rise. It's actually going down under Joe Biden.
That's not an accurate statement. For people who live in cities, dealing with the fact that their cities are unsafe. The videos they see constantly of people being attacked in the streets, attacked on subways, for example, in New York, large cities and small cities. And very often you'll hear this thing that, well, it's conservative states too, Republican states that are having this problem.
Fear works. I mean, have Democrats done enough to combat that?
No, I think they've been caught flat-footed on the crime issue, because the crime issue isn't something that's just happening in Democratic states. In fact, it's happening in Republican states. It's happening at very high rates, and Democrats have a pretty good record on crime. And
no, they don't. The prosecutor in Los Angeles almost got recalled. The prosecutor in San Francisco did get recalled. The disgust with Kim Foxx in Chicago is through the roof. Never mind the massive pushback on Alan Bragg in New York. Democrat, 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 Democrat. In my beloved Indianapolis, the whole conversation is about whether the current incumbent prosecutor, Ryan Mears, will actually prosecute crimes, which is why in a city that has such a large Democratic advantage in terms of registration, a woman by the name of Cindy Carrasco, running as a Republican, is doing actually pretty well in this race. Now, I don't know if it's going to be well enough to obtain victory, but she's been running the race. The money's been there to do television ads and other ads, and that's not something you normally see. They want to talk about conservative states having this issue. This is about cities that are run and controlled by Democrats. That's the story. The Chicago story is a Democrat story. San Francisco, Democrats. Los Angeles, Democrats. New York, Democrats. My beloved Indianapolis, you think of it as this deep red state. The city council, 25 seats, 20 of them belong to Democrats. The mayor, a Democrat. The prosecutor, a Democrat. The downtown doesn't feel like it used to feel, and it used to feel safe. I love Indy. I absolutely adore living in Indy. This is where I want to be. But there's no doubt we have a problem. That disconnect is the story. They want to tell you Democrats are doing fine with crime and, oh, it's everywhere. That's to fail to look at the situation and where the real problems do lie, where the real problems exist. It's purposeful. It's deceitful. It's gaslighting. And Americans are exhausted by it. And in New York, well, listen to how they talk about it. This is Willie Geist over there at MSNBC talking with the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy.
What is your advice to her, and how do you assess that race? Why is it so close? Lee Zeldin, Congressman Zeldin, is leaning in on that issue of crime. It's almost his singular focus.
Yeah, I mean, it's Willie, it's frustrating as heck. Mark was kind of made this point in your prior conversation. It isn't just that people are saying awful things and questioning our institutions and questioning the facts, but it's that people are going along with them. I spoke to Kathy last night. I think she's doing a great job.
Kathy Hochul is not doing a great job. Why do I know this? Because Lee Zeldin is rising, the Republican congressman. Now, do I believe that Zeldin can actually pull out New York? Not at this stage, a week to go. Don't tell me what a poll said. I am saying unlikely. But I must admit to you, if Lee Zeldin wins the governor's race in New York, I cannot think of any bigger race. I cannot think of anything that would be more earth-shattering. As Ed Morrissey of hotair.com discussed it, it would be a black swan event. Just a once in an, oh my gosh, look at that kind of event. It would be huge. But Willie Geist saying all he does is talk about crime, because crime is an issue that affects all the New Yorkers. It affects all the people of Indianapolis, all us Hoosiers. It affects the people of LA and San Francisco and Chicago and your town. It's a very personal conversation. And to dismiss it, oh, it's all they want to talk about. It's because it's such an incredible problem. And if you want to argue that murders have gone down, you're more than welcome to. You cannot argue that people feel unsafe where they live, not because of media, this, that, or the other, but because it is indeed unsafe. We feel scared in our cities because we have people who run those cities who don't see the same value in stopping crime as, I don't know, others. They believe in the idea that you shouldn't prosecute for this, you shouldn't prosecute for that. If you prosecute for there, that's bigoted. If you prosecute there, you're a racist. We want to see criminals brought to justice. We don't think that everything should be a criminal act. You can walk through the streets of Chicago or New York and you will smell a lot of weed. you will smell an absolute crap ton of weed. People have decided that somebody smoking a joint isn't necessarily a crime. People beating the daylights out of others on subways, throwing them in front of subways, attacking Jews on the streets, these are crimes. They have to be dealt with. And we have prosecutors that don't want to deal with them. That's the reality. That isn't what the progressive left is connected to. They're connected to don't believe your lying eyes. The same thing is true about inflation. Jen Psaki
is so hostile to Democrats.
And speaking of that environment, Jen, I mean, when you look at the economy and you look at inflation, it consistently rates as the top issue to voters. And Republicans, when you ask those folks who say that, they're consistently saying they're going to vote Republican by pretty lopsided margins. Is there anything Democrats could have done? Was there a missed opportunity here for Democrats to not face that kind of a headwind?
Look, on inflation, it's a global issue. It's happening around the world. I think there's not a lot Democrats could have done to change that reality.
Oh, Jen. No one cares that inflation is high around the world. And yes, there are many things we could have done to prevent this. For example, don't spend $1.9 trillion on the American Rescue Plan, which exacerbated the issue. And certainly then don't add more spending and taxes via the Inflation Reduction Act, because it doesn't reduce inflation. You've got the Fed raising rates like it's their job, and it's the only thing so far that may start to mute this inflation push. But if the Fed does, not the Federal Reserve, if the federal government doesn't stop spending, then it's all for naught. It's like oil prices and what we see at the price of the pump. If you had a nation that was serious about producing gas, about producing oil, we could put more onto the market and prices would come down. And I know this because Joe Biden has been releasing millions and millions and millions of barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve into the market, proving, well, not only proving that he can put a country like the United States at dire risk if we need the oil and don't have it, proving that putting more oil into a marketplace reduces prices, proving that supply and demand is real. So why don't we just go about engaging more supply? He says he'll do it, but that's not really true. He instead thinks that those evil gas companies are just making too much money while he calls himself a capitalist.
Look, I'm a capitalist. You've heard me say this before. I have no problem with corporations turning a fair profit or getting a return on their investment in innovation. But this is remotely what's happening. Oil companies' record profits today are not because they're doing something new or innovative. Their profits are a windfall of war. The windfall from the brutal conflict that's ravaging Ukraine and hurting tens of millions of people around the globe. You know, at a time of war, any company receiving historic windfall profits like this has a responsibility to act.
Can we stop for a moment? Time of war? Time of war? I thought it was just Joe Biden being Joe Biden, but nope. This is the new talking point.
I think if we're talking about any of these conversations, we have to start by recognizing that we are not in normal times. We are in a time of war, and the global environment and the global energy markets are fundamentally affected by that reality. And the reason why we have had the supply crisis that we have had, and the reason why we have seen price increases that we've seen globally, is at the core because of the war and Putin's actions. And so companies that are in a position where prices have increased dramatically have reaped excessive profits from that windfall. And so
excessive profits? You think that they can make fair profits, Joe Biden? First, we're not in a time of war. Russia has invaded Ukraine. We're not in a time of war. This is a conversation you're bringing up now because you figure if it's a time of war, people need to rally around the president of the United States. You can't speak bad about him. It's a time of war. It's a fear-mongering technique. And the answer is windfall tax. We, the government, decide that this company has made too much money, so they should pay more. Do you really think the company's going to pay more? They're thrilled that they instituted this corporate minimum tax of 15%. Who do you think pays that? We pay that. You pay that. Of course, that's the way it works. A windfall tax means we will pay more for gas, not less. And a windfall profits tax means that the government doesn't believe that people should be able to make money. Now, you and I could argue that the price of gas is simply too much, but we can also play the game. What if Trump did it? There should be a theme. There should be music. Do I have theme music for what if Trump did it? Yeah, I do. Wait, no, is that it? Here it is. What if Trump did it? Here's how we play our game. We take a look at something Joe Biden said. We say, what if Trump said it? And then we imagine what the reaction would be. If Trump told companies, you're making too much money, I'm going to tax you, he'd be called an authoritarian. He'd be called a bully. He'd be called a thug. They would say this is a banana republic, disgusting, and we have to get rid of this dictator in wanting. That's what they would say. You're not debating it. No one's debating it. Of course, this is absolutely what they would say if Trump said it. And here's Biden saying it, and here's his economic team saying it. Disconnected from where Americans are. They want gas prices to go down, and they understand supply and demand pretty well. It really doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what party you belong to in the main. Lots of people who don't even associate with a party. They know if you've got more of something, the price comes down. If you have less of something, scarcity, the price goes up. They get it. And they get that this administration isn't interested in creating more of something. You've got people opposed to oil. You've got the radical green movement that says everything should be electric, like that electricity just gets made in the ether. Solar doesn't work. Wind doesn't work to create the electricity. We need what if we're going to move everybody to an electric car? It's not the way it works, and we get it. Another example of the disconnect that's taking place. But don't worry. Inflation is of course not the fault of Joe Biden. And who better to explain it than John Fetterman?
What do you think the biggest cause of inflation is? And should the Biden administration be doing more?
No, I just do. I think that simply is also, Leah, let's talk about the trillions in massive tax cuts to the corporate tax structure as well. True. Trillions of dollars that have added to the deficit, and now they still want to support those as well. True. I think in terms of being very serious about addressing inflation is making sure that those rates are brought back into a line with what they should have been, where they're able to fight the deficit.
The Democratic Party, the progressives, want to tell you there's nothing wrong with John Fetterman. They want to tell you that it's wrong to bring up anything that's wrong with John Fetterman. If you do, you're an ableist. If you do, you won't accept that a man is recovering. Let John Fetterman recover. If his family loved him, if the Democratic Party cared about him, they would let him recover. They had the chance to replace him on the ticket with Connor Lamb, Democratic congressman. They didn't. They kept him even though they know he's not okay. They want to tell you he's fine, and you're wrong for noting. Americans don't want that. They don't want to be told that they can't notice the reality right in front of their face. They see it, and you see it. Also, blaming Trump tax cuts for inflation, that's madness. That's a disconnect with the American people. That's excuses. And Americans are not into excuses. They want results. This is where the Republican Party has to be very, very concerned. The numbers show that the Republicans look good right now. And there's two reasons for this. First, where they are clearly up in the polls in places like, for example, Georgia, Herschel Walker over Senator Raphael Warnock, and Governor Brian Kemp well ahead of Stacey Abrams. But there's also the idea that Republican polling isn't telling the full story. I think his name is Robert Cahaley. I always get his last name wrong, and I apologize, from Trafalgar Group. And he made the statement that there is on the right the submerged Trump voter, the person who will not respond to a poll at all. I often refer to that as the shy right voter. They won't respond to a poll, and you know this because you've gotten the text messages, you've gotten the phone calls, and click, you just hang up, stop, no, whatever it is you got to put in there to make it all go away. You don't answer pollsters. The political right does not answer pollsters in the same way the political left does. Therefore, they are undercounted. So there's an entire theory that you have to add points to where the Republicans are. And that's what has people saying Republicans are going to do so very, very well. Let me give you an example. Let me give you a Senate poll going on in New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is a race where you have the Senator Democrat Maggie Hassan running against Don Bolduc, the general. Right now, the St. Anselm poll has Bolduc up 1. Now, this poll was 1,541 likely voters with a margin of error of 2.5. 1,500 is a really nice sample size and a margin of error of 2.5. For me, I look at things with a margin of error under 3. When I see 4 and 4.5, I take that with very, very large grains of salt. I can't find myself finding that to be valuable. I do dismiss it. But here you have, over the last 4 polls, Hassan +6, Hassan +3, Hassan +1, Bolduc +1. Now, does that mean that he's going to pick this up? I don't know. But if he does, that's huge. That's bigger than Oz beating Fetterman. That's bigger than Walker beating Warnock. That's a race that the Democrats never thought they would lose. Why is that? It's because the Democratic Party is completely disconnected from where Americans are. And that is just one of many, many examples. Let me go to Arizona really quick, guys, where the latest poll has Kelly up by 1. If you take a look at these polls, no matter who they're from, they'll range to Kelly +6, Mark Kelly, the Democrat incumbent senator, to Kelly +1. But if you take a look at where people like Real Clear Politics see it, they see it as a Republican pickup for Blake Masters. Also, interesting piece in Arizona, the Libertarian candidate, Mark Victor, dropped out of the race today and endorsed Blake Masters, the Republican. Now, you might say to me, it's the Libertarian. What's he going to bring with him? 5,000 votes? 5,000 votes might make the difference. 1,000 votes is 1,000 votes. You take them anywhere you can get them legally and lawfully. This is where the numbers are going. This is where they're trending. But when you take a look at all of them, they're trending this way because the left is totally out of touch. The left wants to call you a racist when you disagree with them or a Nazi when you disagree with them. They're screaming that the political right is a danger to democracy. And Americans see inflation, supply chain, gas prices, and the constant attack on their children. They say, yeah, this is not what I want. I want this over here. At least an attempt at normalcy. Republicans have to capitalize on this. Not only do you have to get the victory, I mean, I wouldn't change a thing between now and election day. You immediately have to start asking Americans what normalcy means to them in your districts and providing that. Stop calling people names. Stop push back against the people who call people racists and bigots, like, I don't know, the entirety of the Democratic Party. Start delivering. You're going to have to deliver a lower gas price. You're going to have to deliver more energy exploration and getting energy security in the United States. You're going to have to deliver not having empty shelves. If you are Gen X and lower, you really have never seen this, the concept of empty shelves. Now, yes, compared to other nations, we've got full shelves, but it's just like inflation. We don't compare ourselves to other nations. We're the United States. They compare themselves to us. And for our standard, this sucks. And the Democratic Party can't handle that. They can't see it. They refuse to accept that reality. The voter has not. The voter has some other issues as well. Like Joe Biden, once again, doing this.
And no change in the quality of it, just changing the price. And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. The war in Ukraine. And think of Iraq because that's where my son died.
Beau Biden did not die in Iraq. That's a lie. Beau Biden died of brain cancer. He did not die in Iraq. Yet he keeps saying it. And he keeps bringing up his son. I don't know what it's like to lose a child. I only hope I never, ever, ever find out. And it is clear that the loss of his son has affected Joe Biden in many ways. And as a father, I don't fault him for that. I fault him for bringing it up in so many ways. And I think a lot of Americans are starting to resent it. There are people who have lost family members on the battlefield, and Joe Biden didn't. And when you bring it up like that, it is this weird kind of stolen valor thing. It is ugly. As opposed to lines like this that are really ugly. I swear to you, I don't know what compelled Joe Biden to say this. These are his words, not mine, not condoned by me at all.
A senator from Florida going after Medicare and Social Security? I tell you what, I don't know where, as they say in Southern, don't know where y'all been. Hot damn, boy. I tell you, look.
Yeah, did I say John Fetterman's not okay? Joe Biden's not okay. And that's another part of this. The Republican Party is connected to where the American voter is, what it is they're thinking, what it is they're feeling, and the Democratic Party is completely detached from that reality. And that's why they're losing. The Republican Party has to keep that up. Past the election, that's how you make 2024 work. I only hope that they're smart enough to do it, but they're the Republicans. It's the party of stupid. I don't actually know if they have what it takes. Now, the comments have been coming in fast and furious. Oh, I love the comments right there. Let me go. Hold on a second. Republicans better turn out. Faith, how are you? Turnout matters quite a bit. And the conversations about fear of violence at the polling place, that's actually been a conversation of mine. If you call Americans, if you say that Republicans are a threat to democracy, Republicans are fascists, Republicans are Nazis, Republicans want to kill you, Republicans want to enslave you, you start dehumanizing Republicans in people's eyes. These people won't allow us to have a free and fair election. We have to do something about them. That is my fear. They talk about intimidation at the polling place. I'm old enough to remember when you saw the Black Panthers at polling places in Philadelphia with billy clubs. I said, what in the hell is this? I want people to be able to vote. Of course, I want people to be able to vote, even if they don't vote the way I like them to. I don't like what they're voting for. They're Americans, and they get to vote in absolute peace, without question. I want no intimidation. I worry about it. I absolutely worry about it. But Republicans need to turn out. Of course they do. People who don't want to live in the insanity need to turn out. And if this voter intimidation leads to less turnout, yeah, that's a big problem right there. Freddie wants everyone to get their Powerball tickets before tomorrow's drawing. 1.2 billion. I want you to know if I win, I'll be back. I'll be back. I will just be wearing nicer clothes. And I don't know, maybe the show will come from a beach from time to time, or a mountain retreat, or a penthouse. I don't care. It's $1.2 billion. I'll do it. I'll do it all. I'll do it right there. Hold on, wait, what's this? Larry, I don't know you. Hey, Larry. The rich in Florida and the GOP will come up with the plans to steal the federal government monies, or you could say that's socialist money, just as they did in Jackson, Mississippi. All right. You lost me, Larry. You lost me, Larry. I'm not quite sure what that means at all in any way. Faith, yes, Putin has nothing to do with the disconnect that Democrats have with the American people. That much is very, very true. That much is clear. Let me see. Hold on. Wait, I had one more, and I cannot. Hold on. Down here. Mike Ham, the left overplays their hand, but the right never follows through. This is their chance. I've been saying that the left overplays their hand for years. That's been a constant conversation of mine. And they do. The left always overplays their hands. But this is an opportunity for the political right to get it right and really connect and be people unafraid to have conversations. Go into neighborhoods that they might find scary. Talk to people. People want to be heard. They want to be listened to. Now, you might not always agree with them, but they at least want to know that you're thinking about the things they're thinking about. And the Democratic Party has proven that's not the case. They actually abhor the idea that you think about anything they haven't told you to think about. That's what's happening in this election. Republicans not only have an opportunity for victory, they have an opportunity for cultural shift. Let's see if they're smart enough to get there. Guys, I appreciate you being here, being a part of the show, presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty, free speech, two damn good things. And if I get the Powerball, that's going to be a lot of economic liberty. Oh, we're going to have a party. There will be snacks. I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you tomorrow. Take care.